How's everyone doing today? Pete here at Spawn Fly Fish, ready for another adventure on the vise. And yes, I am still obsessed with tying jigs. So we're going to tie another jig. This one, a twitching jig, thinking big salmon. So grab your vise. If you have some jig heads, grab those. If not, transfer what we tie today into your own fly. Either way, let's have some fun. As you can see, this is a large chartreuse jig head, 1/2 ounce, size 4/0 hook. And let's get some thread going. This is definitely where you could beef up that thread. If you want to go, 200, 210, whatever, even 240. This is the time. But again, just having a lot of fun tying jigs here. And there seems to be a lot of people who appreciate seeing, oh man, I didn't know you could put all that material onto a jig. And so I'll gladly show you. There's no limit. Just going to get a Polliwog tail, and this is the fluorescent chartreuse that we've now got here at Spawn Fly Fish. I'm just going to get that tied in. I want to use the vast majority of this tail here. So there we go. That's all we're going to give it for a tie-in. Nothing crazy. Everything we do today on this is going to be, fairly, I don't want to use the word simple, but you'll be able to follow along, that's for sure. All right, so at this point, we're not going to get into like a bunch of flash or anything like that. There's going to be flash that builds out throughout this tying, I guess. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to come in next with some rabbit. And this is two-tone rabbit from Hairline. And this is, of course, Crosscut, but this is black-tipped chartreuse. And let's just get that tied in. I do have a little cleaned out spot there on the leather so that it just ties in nice and neat. And then getting back to that flash, and I do have water here, so I'm just going to keep everything kind of tamed and controlled as we go. But for that flash, now before I wrap that rabbit, I'm going to tie in a section of some polar chenille UV. And so UV polar chenille in silver is what this is. And it does have a little bit more body or volume to it, and I do like that. Now let me get just a small thread base on this upper portion of this jig here. Call that good, and it'll just help as we progress. If you just leave that bare, it's very slippery. It makes it pretty tricky to wrap anything on there. We're going to just kind of finesse out that polar chenille, the UV polar chenille, and then lay it down right onto the leather of our rabbit like so. So at this point, everything is going to flow nice and together and over the rear portion of our jig. So it's going out over the tail. And since this, these jigs sometimes have this little collar where this lead is poured on the front portion, I'm going to use that as just a little guide and let it tell me, hey, this is where we're going to stop on this. And so this will essentially have two portions, a front and a back portion. And if you think about it in those terms, getting some really cool color transitions becomes a little bit easier. I think, I could be wrong, but I think it's easier because you can already see where that overlap has to occur to create some transitions in color. And of course, as you build forward, there will be a slight increase naturally in a taper, but we'll exaggerate that so that there's no question what's going on. When you're fishing these jigs, especially to, very large species, you're not concerned so much about keeping it nice and cute and tiny and all that. You would just tie something smaller. If you're going to tie something big, by all means, tie something big. So here we have a fluorescent chartreuse mallard flank feather, and this is from Nature Spirit. And I've just got a little spot cleaned out there for a tie-in, and I'm going for 2 wraps of this guy. And the reason, look at that rabbit. So I got this nice green chartreuse going on for the tail. I really like the chartreuse tone in the jig head, but they're not the same. Somehow we have to connect these guys. So again, this is a very light chartreuse that's on that rabbit. This darker chartreuse on the mallard is not only going to make that look like it sort of belongs with the rest of the deal going on, but it's also going to break up that patterning with some of the mottle effect or speckling on the feather fibers. And if you've watched this channel for more than 3 minutes, you know I am a big fan of breaking up that monotony. And I am a big fan of anything that's mottled, be it natural, synthetic, just like it. So there we go. Get that pretty clean tie off ready. And then just drop that thread down a couple times. Really secure that. And that's a pretty good look right there. I like it. I think the fish will too. So this little comb is going to come into play a lot today. And again, just kind of, you know, once you've wrapped feathers like that, especially if you're not trimming one side out, just leaving it full, go ahead, release any trapped fibers before you move forward. Going to make your life a lot easier. You don't want to get up here, have your last 3 thread wraps and go, man, I wish I'd have combed that out back there. It's going to be a difficult operation at that point. And come back down. Again, just sort of tidying up that little space right there. And our next move, again, this is going to be a fun transition from, you know, all the chartreuses and everything. But we're going black on that next section. So this is some black crosscut rabbit. Just going to get that tied in. And yes, I did clean out a little section there for an easier tie-in spot. And now we're back to another piece of UV polar chenille. Still in that silver. And just going to tie that right on top of that leather. Again, we'll wrap both of those at the same time. But I didn't want this to be a boring jig for you. So my idea of making this more interesting or fun is at this point, we've got this nice large space up here. When I'm tying the float version of these, I'll go right in the middle here where we tied in that mallard, and I'll veil in some legs. But with something a little bit bigger like this, you know, to me this is a large canvas. I'm gonna utilize this big space up here and not have all the legs covering up the mallard right away. And so I'll split it and I'll start putting the legs. I want them to be in the middle here of the space that's remaining, and everything will be veiling back. But we're going to have to sort of control all of that until we're ready to start wrapping that rabbit. So how do we do that? Well, let's do it this way. Here are 2 legs. So there's that midpoint. Call that good. So all I did was take 2 legs, bring it up to the thread, veil it over. So by the time it all folds back, you have 4 legs. So I'm going to take 2 more legs. I'm going to go completely opposite side now, which is even though this floats as a jig, so this will now be a top portion, right? It just sits upside down. And once I've got those legs veiled over that thread, again, pretty simple move. Bring it right up to the top. Oh, so I've got a busted leg. Oh boy. What to do? Cut another one. That's what we do. Give me 2 jiffies here. Every once in a while you get a leg that's just dried out, or you might have cut it without even knowing that you cut it. There's more than one way to break a rubber leg, let's just say that. My favorite way is when a fish eats it, but clearly that was not the case. Alright, again, just veiling it over. There are the 4, keeping it very simple for now. As far as trimming, I don't want this to reach too far back, so I'm gonna try to remember to keep up on trimming these legs as we go. I just want something less than the end of the tail. So if you go halfway back on that tail, that's great. You know, 3/4, whatever you're vibing. I'm looking at around at 3/4, I guess. 2 more legs now. I'm gonna tie these guys since I'm looking at this blank side. So we've got 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top, and now we'll go 2 veiled legs per side, which gives us 4 veiled legs per side. I guess, but you know how that works. The gist of this is we're going to have a lot of legs flowing out, but this is a very quick way to incorporate a bunch of leg without having to get into, you know, now I got to buy skirts, rubber leg skirts, you know, all this jig stuff. Nope. I'm just showing you this is all you need. You know, the same stuff you use to tie flies, you could tie jigs and vice versa. So I'm going to bring all these rubber legs forward for a jiffy. That's the word of the day, jiffy. And now just to keep them out of the way, just going to put them in a little timeout with a couple thread wraps, nothing to it. So now we're going to get 2 wraps. This is theory. We're going to get 2 wraps of this rabbit strip, undo our thread wraps, let all those legs flow back and get some rabbit wraps in the front of said legs. So again, just let all that lay down on the rabbit like so. Get your, you know, fingertips wet and just kind of brush them together. They'll marry a little bit. And now let's just start wrapping. So there's 1. Here we're going for the 2nd wrap. And before I get to that 3rd wrap, let's undo all those legs. Just kind of coax them back to where they wanted to be in the first place, which is in the show. They want to be a part of this jig. They definitely don't want to be left out. All right. Maybe not the simplest move on the first wrap, but once you've got them all going back the right direction, nothing to it. Look at that. Legs, legs, legs. I love it. So on this, I'm not going super crazy as far as packing in extra wraps or anything like that. I do want sufficient, right? I want it full. I don't want to see a bunch of bare leather on the bottom of this thing after I tie it off or any of that goofiness. But again, don't go so far that you start creeping up on the back side of that jig head, because we're not done yet. We still got a little bit to play with. Now we can safely trim out our remnant of UV polar chenille, and we've got a little bit of our rabbit just a tag there. Get that cut out and back to those wet fingertips. Sort of play and splay. Let's give a little brush out to this rabbit. See all those legs kind of just coax back into where they originally were, and that's a good look right there. But we can still add another layer of fun. At this point, I'm going to turn it and just make sure I've got everything in the right position. Nothing's exposed that shouldn't be exposed. You know, every once in a while playing with rabbit, you get a weird cut or a weird spot that has a missing section of fur. It can kind of change the outlook, but looks like we're all right. There we go. This next product's kind of fun. Some of you might recognize that. That is fine black barred Marabou from Hairline. Maybe not the most pleasant material in the world to work with, and as maybe you can see here, what happens is these fibers, because of that barring, they sometimes want to stick to each other, and I know there's more than just one person out there who's not thrilled by that. So I also am not the biggest fan of that sort of deal, but I'll tell you this. It's a beautiful feather, and here's the fix. I told you we'd use this comb a lot today, but this is truly it. Once you get these feathers, if you so choose to get into these, all you have to do is be very patient, but you have to just simply run that comb right through those fibers. It will, you know, don't give a lot of pressure, just enough, and it will slowly start to separate the fibers and sort of, you know, break the dried barring. And once you do, let me get this tied in. I'm yapping way too much right now. Once you do that, then it just plays like regular Marabou, and it's beautiful. Ooh, a little extra something on that one. Told you I was yapping too much. Started thinking about the hook set when this thing gets eaten. Speaking of hook sets, got out a couple times this week. Fishing's great. Just chasing cutthroat, but we got a little bump of rain. Seemed to cool that water off a little bit. The fish were very happy, moving around the way they're supposed to and all that good stuff. But the water was a little off color. And of course, when you're fishing little streamers and all that good stuff, man, that can make a good day turn into a great day. And I had a couple great days out there on the river. So I hope you guys are getting out there to fish too. Trim out those little tag ends. So this is one of those, black barred chartreuse feathers from Marabou feather from Hairline. But on top of that, I've got a regular black Marabou feather and tied them both in together. And so we're going to wrap them together. I'm not trimming out the lead edge or anything like that. But I do want to take my time and get these all coaxed back before we start wrapping. And so there's that. As I wrap, I want to continue that mentality of keeping those very, I don't want to say moist, but under control. And the only way to do that is with a little bit of water. So we're going 2 wraps. If for whatever reason you tie a couple of these and 3 makes you happy, go for 3. I think 2 is more than enough. And sometimes on these shorter Marabou feathers, that's all you get. Not always. And there's always spay Marabou, different things. There are different ways to attack that. I just want to get 1 thread wrap in there, and then I can sort of separate out those fibers that belong from the fibers that are not going to stay. There we go. Some really good, very well placed thread wraps. Nothing to it. And I know it still doesn't look like a whole lot, but let's get this combed out a little bit. Maybe rejuvenate some of these mashed wet feathers or fibers, and then it'll kind of make more sense. But okay, bring all those back. Get a couple thread wraps in there. You still see we've got some cleaning to do, if you will, but that's no problem. So at this point, just kind of working my way around there, releasing any of those fibers, again, that maybe didn't get combed out to begin with, a little sticky from the barring, or because I did go in there with wet fingers and mash everything together before we tied it in. Again, that's why we do it. Take your time, find those goodies. Anything is not quite right, now's the time to fix it. At this point, boy oh boy, that's pretty clean. I could get a little pickier, but I can also do that off camera. There we go. That's looking pretty gnarly right there. So let's go ahead and finish this. A couple whip finishes here. This thing is ready to swim. I really appreciate that you guys watch these videos. I know not all of you tie jigs, and I know not all of you tie your own flies, whatever it might be. And yet there seems to be something that's, can be learned still. And so I hope you're finding that. I really appreciate you spending your time with us. Let's get our second whip finish here. And a very clean trim out of that thread. And of course, none of this would be finished without this little seal of cement. So we've got some Loon Hardhead Clear. I'm just going to get a nice coat on all these thread wraps. Let it travel around as it travels through and saturates. It will work its way all the way through those layers of thread, through the materials, and eventually meet up with the bottom of all that goodness, which is the jig itself. All right. If it ain't chartreuse, it ain't no use. There's your big old black chartreuse jig. I mean, good luck getting this thing to sit still. If the legs stop moving, you still have a couple different styles of Marabou that won't quit. Inside of all that, you have a rabbit that's going to be pulsating. I'm pushing all these goodies out, and then that flash hidden as it turns and jigs up and down. It's just going to be blinking at them. That's it. That's how you tie a successful jig. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, by all means, please hit that like button. Please hit subscribe. We will see all of you on the water.